Alright, what is going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel, or welcome in if you're new. In this video, we're going to be talking about HEX in orbit, currently in orbit. We made a previous video called HEX Thrusters Engaged, and maybe this can be part of this new series where we do the multiple stages of a rocket. Found some cool analogies that we're going to use here, so leave a thumbs up, be subscribed. Let's help us get this channel past 3,000 subscribers. We're basically there at 29.95. So, 29.96. Let's freaking go. Yeah, let's go and talk about this a little bit. So, what do I mean when I say HEX is currently in orbit? Well, with rockets, you have multiple stages. And back here, where I placed this arrow, I made a video called HEX Thrusters Engaged, right? And at that point, I was saying, you know what, maybe we form an ascending triangle. And I was also talking about, well, maybe it's this sort of support, right, where there was resistance on this falling parallel channel, came back down to it, touch and go, off to the races. We haven't had an opportunity like this for over a month, and we might never again, right? I have no clue what's going to happen, but we do have historical precedent of being right on this channel a few times. Usually the first to admit when I'm wrong. So if you can find any points that I have been, feel free to refer me to them. Yeah, with that said, there are a few angles I want to look at HEX through in this video, including our resistance, clearly our horizontal resistance here, and some moving averages, as well as some other more quantitative models. All right. So first of all, let's start with this. This is obvious resistance turned support. Like this is textbook right here, where you have your bullish formation. In this case, you could call this an ascending triangle, a breakthrough above it, and then confirmation. And we were actually talking about it in that video called HEX Thrusters Engaged. So I'll leave a little card here so you can check that out. I was pretty blown away looking back at this video because we almost called this perfectly, right? We said our target was 12 to 24 cents, explained why multiple times, and how it'd be even more bullish if we saw a breakout and retest of this region. So, I mean, it's played out. Things are relatively calm right now, right? Seeing nice consolidation, nice dropping of weight here before we continue on into space. All right. So there's your analogy for the rockets, where you have the fuel tanks, right? As you blast off into space, and then once you reach a certain point, you can drop that extra weight so you can go faster because you don't need the fuel anymore. There's less resistance when you're out in space, right? There's no air up there. So I feel like we're at that point. I think we're at that point where we're currently in orbit, dropping some extra weight before blasting off even farther into the 12 to 24 cent region, especially with the whole hype of pulse chain coming in too, by obviously the same founder, hence the crossover, right? But that's what I see here. Continuing on with the technical analysis side of things, we have our moving averages, which we've been looking at, and in a previous video, just a few videos ago, we called this a potential fake out, right? Because we closed candles beneath specifically our purple curve, our 21-day EMA, which we saw a fake out here, but it didn't break beneath it. It was a good time to buy. And we've talked about the fact that all year long has been a fantastic time to buy when we're underneath our 21-day EMA, right? Just trying to do some rough circles here. But you pretty much get the idea, right? Ever since 2021 started, these have been the best regions to buy. And we actually dropped beneath it, right? We closed our quarter really nicely as our second most profitable quarter to date yesterday with a June close. And then we came and we broke through it, right? And now we're currently printing our candle. We do have a full 24 hours before this candle closes. So if it can get above 7.75, so 7.75 cents, then it will have been another fake out like this. If it closes beneath it, we've seen that sometimes it doesn't always last, right? Where we were saying historically, these 3 times all year long, when we closed beneath it, it was a 10 to 30% dip or something like that, 20-30% dip. But lo and behold, that didn't happen this time. So I was wrong here, actually. Even though I didn't say it was going to happen, I said there's always a downside risk, right? And I was just outlining what that risk was. But we had our obvious bounce, and now we're coming down beneath it. We don't know what's going to happen. Could we just consolidate for a while before continuing further? Sure, of course. accumulation near all-time highs is generally a great thing. It reminds me of the HEX BTC move, right, that we saw not that long ago. Here, I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. Over here, when we saw this really bullish consolidation over here, literally right on top of previous all-time highs. Like, this was so textbook. Some nice consolidation near all-time highs before it continued to blast off. And I mean, it's still looking strong. We've had our obvious divergence here on the RSI, but we're still holding strong here, consolidating just, you know, just how much percent away from that wick. Let's see. So currently only 24% down from all-time highs on the HEX BTC pair. I was just comparing this consolidation above all-time highs to this. I was just comparing it to this. What's not on top of all-time highs, right? Consolidation above here would be obviously extremely bullish, but it is near all-time highs, especially if you zoom out to something like the weekly, for example. Then you see, oh, definitely, right? This was previous all-time high region, so consolidation around here makes sense before continuing on further. When in doubt, zoom out. So those are your moving averages to look at. Maybe this 50-day MA, just because it's held significance back here in pretty much on April 28th, 29th, when we had our convergence of support on our horizontal level and our exponential support. So when we had convergence of support, we were super bullish back here, and that corresponded to support on the 50-day MA as well. So that sits here at around 6.71 cents, which converges with these levels of previous resistance now turned support. So I guess you could say worst case scenario, in my opinion, obviously no clue what's going to happen, worst case scenario, something like this, a double bottom that finds support on this moving average, which will converge with obviously this level, and I would say that would be your worst case scenario, so to speak. And it would also look like an ABC. So ABC correction. So that's the technical side of things I wanted to share with you. If we look at our quantitative side, there are a few things I want to look at. For example, our 2021, because we're halfway through the year, and I think it's a good time to look back and audit what has performed well and what hasn't. We could plot a ton of coins on here, but I really only wanted to look at these main three: Bitcoin, Ethereum, and HEX. I find they're probably the only ones to really care about up until Pulse Chain launches. Then obviously we'll have some more stuff to care about. But in terms of price action, I mean, these are the obvious three to pick. And as you can see, we plotted ROI from the beginning of 2021 to now to just see, okay, obviously time doesn't restart when a new year starts, and you have to remember the 2020 gains as well. But it's just an interesting experiment to see what's been performing well this year. And with Bitcoin, we obviously all these start at 1, right? They're normalized to each other, all scaled to the same scale. With Bitcoin, we saw that at most you were up a 2x at the high. If you invested at the beginning of the year, around day, what is this, like 100 and something, 105, so the 105th day of the year, maybe, what is that, like mid-April or something, is when you'd actually have had your 2x. But now you're back down to about 1.17x. So Bitcoin kind of did this little, not pump and dump, but I mean, that's kind of what it looks like. It just went up, went back down. Same with Ethereum, although it's held up a little stronger, obviously. At its peak, it was up 5.45x, and even now, after the correction, you're still up 3x from the beginning of the year, which makes sense because on Ethereum, you started the year at about $734, whereas on Bitcoin, you started at around $29,000. So just kind of give you an idea of how far away we are from basically where we started at the beginning of this year. If you remember, the end of last year was getting super bullish. Bitcoin was going up like $1,000 a day or something, but now we're pretty much where we started. So that's that for Bitcoin, that's that for Ether. And if you look at HEX, the obvious winner of these three, you see something interesting, that while Bitcoin and Ether were moving up, we actually had this dip, right? This big dip in HEX where it went down, went back up, kind of bounced with the rest of the market, but not above its all-time highs, came back down before it finally came up out of the depths of being pretty much underwater for the first quarter of 2021. before we came up above and started actually outperforming on day around 117 of the year. So when Bitcoin had already put in a local top and Ethereum was just gearing up for its kind of post BTC top blow off top, that's when HEX started actually doing something and started outperforming the rest of the market, or continuing to outperform the rest of the market like it did all of 2020. So that's that for you. Fun fact, day 144 or so is when HEX actually took back its sort of control of ROI in the market. I'm actually gonna have to check on this little ether spike right here, day 156. That doesn't look right to me. Let's double check that. 156. Did it really go back to 4K on June 5th? Let's take a look. On June 5th. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. Okay, that's awkward. So maybe it was actually like 2,700. I don't know why it says that. See, I pulled data from Nomics, and some of these actually were off like by 100x, how to fix just the decimal. So something is definitely up here. If we just manually do 2,700, we get a better idea of, yeah, so there was no spike there. Day 144 is when HEX took control of the ROI for 2021, truly, from these three coins. And here we are now with HEX sitting at 5.44x from the beginning of the year, which, interestingly enough, right now we're sitting, consolidating, chilling at the ROI that Ether actually held at its peak of around $4,300, I believe. We can actually check, right? Day 132 or so. $4,032 was the average high of that day. But we know it obviously had an hourly wake up to like 4,300 or something. So that's your 2021 ROI. Yeah, I mean, we can look at our heat maps too. I kind of didn't want to look at this, which is why I had it open. Just to remind you guys that we've been here before, right? In this level of extension from our fit. This is pretty much your regression rainbow, but made into a heat map. And it pretty much just elucidates on the fact that we have a long way to go if we were to have another similar bubble, which it would converge with the fractal that we've been talking about for a long time now. I won't cover it in this video, but rather in a future video I'll update you, because we're pretty much at the same spot on the fractal, right? We're pretty much on the same spot. We'll just cover it real quick for those of you who are new. Then we've been looking at this fractal on our regression rainbow that we're still in between orange and yellow from our extension from fit. And we saw this type of consolidation before this move up. This is pretty much the same curve as the heat map, except on a log scale. So that was just a linear scale. This is a log scale. Obviously, it looks way more impressive and intimidating on a linear scale. On a log scale, you can more so digest it. But here we are, and we'll cover that in a future video. But other than that, this video is getting pretty long. I think I'm going to cut it here. Things are looking good, right? Things aren't extremely bullish as they have been before, but they're looking pretty freaking good. I don't see a strong bear case other than maybe downside risk up to the high sixes, low sevens. But even then, I've called for downside risk in the past and it hasn't happened. So HEX generally tends to surprise you. We'll see what happens, right? I don't have a crystal ball. Never financial advice on this channel. Obviously, just your generic disclaimer for this video. But yeah, with that said, leave a thumbs up if you enjoy this kind of content. Help us get to 3,000 subs. We are literally right there, knocking at its door. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoy this kind of quantitative hybrid technical analysis. And we'll continue keeping you updated. Check out the live streams that we did just the other day. I was live for like 3 hours, took a huge nap, and I was so out of it the rest of that day. So go show some love there. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.